is Brenda DiGregorio, and I am one of Help Me Grow's community outreach specialists and early intervention specialists. I actually was a director for 4 years for the Woodland Parent Nursery School. So I do want to give a shout out to all of you parents that are there. It is such a wonderful school, wonderful experience. My daughter, who's 15, she's an alumni. My son, who is 7, he's an alumni. And my daughter, who's 15, one of her best friends, actually 3 of her best friends are still students that were there during that time. They met at WPNS and they still get together and do things. So it's really a nice connection. A lot of these people are like our family. And so, you know, kudos to you guys for signing up for such a wonderful program and being a part of your child's development. It's such a great experience. So as I said, I was a director there for 4 years. Before that, I was for Yolo County Office of Ed, their special ed early intervention program. So the First Steps Infant program, and also the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program in the infant, toddler, and also preschool program. And so I have quite a few years under my belt. And so I come with a lot of different experiences in different areas. I've been with Help Me Grow, actually, the day everything closed down from the pandemic was my first day of work there. So it was an interesting time to start a job, but I love it. This is something I really enjoy doing, is helping families connect to services. This is going to be very you know, informal. If anyone has questions at any time, go ahead and unmute yourself. I'm happy to answer anything while I go. If I go too fast, let me know as well. And I'm happy to slow down and explain something a little more. And so Help Me Grow YOLO is a First 5 funded program. And it is under the umbrella of Children's Therapy Center in Woodland. And so we work closely with the therapists, and which is a nice collaboration piece to that. So let's see, let me go ahead and move to the next one. So what is Help Me Grow YOLO? Some of you might be familiar with the program. We've been around, Help Me Grow YOLO has been around for about 6 years now, but it is a program that's been around for about almost 20 years in different areas. And what the goal is, it's a program that helps prepare kids in all areas of development. We offer activities and information on how to help your child and their development, and help connect families and children birth through 5 to necessary resources. And it became an important piece in California because they were finding that only 30% of children were being identified with any kind of delay or needing to be connected to services. And so they wanted to try to close that gap. And so with Help Me Grow YOLO, we help try to connect those families to the services early on so that they can get the help they need and hopefully catch up sooner. So early intervention is the key. So let's see here. And how do we identify the needs of your child and your family? This is just kind of going to go real quick. Is completing a developmental screening, which I'll go over what that is exactly. And anybody can call, anybody can refer. It doesn't have to be a referral from a pediatrician, although we do get referrals from pediatricians. A parent can refer, anyone can just call. And so we do have a toll-free number. And we also have our website that has all the information and information about completing the screening. And that's at helpmegrowyolo.org. And so here, so what is a developmental screening? So with a developmental screening, it's a tool. So it's not an assessment tool, but it's more of a screening tool to give us quick information to view your child's development where they're at right now. And the key areas that we focus on are communication, gross motor, fine motor, personal social, problem-solving skills, and social emotional skills. And I'm going to go into those more in depth here right now. And so with communication, we want to look at the children where they're at for their age. And so we want to make sure there's a range. And so we want to make sure that children are falling within that age appropriate range. And so there are key things that kids do within that age. And so this is just to give you an idea. So if we're looking at babies, we're looking at 3 months old, they're making eye contact. That's the way they communicate. They're making connections with their caregiver or whoever is with them. They cry different cries for when they're hungry, when they're happy, when they're, sad. So we want to make sure that children are making those connections at that age. What we do when we do a screening, if we're doing communication, and if there is, with the questionnaire, it says, yes, they're doing that. Sometimes they're doing that or not yet. It'll score it, and it'll either be their age appropriate, they're in the monitor range, which is they're not quite doing these things yet. And so we want to keep an eye on that, and we'll rescreen for concern range. But we also take part with information from the parent. And so since this is more of a preschool age, if we're looking at 3-year-olds, we want to make sure they're making 3 to 4 word sentences. Many times parents will say, oh, they talk a lot, but nobody else understands them. And as parents, we're very good at reading our children. And so we get to know they make certain sounds, movements, or anything like that. That tells us, oh, they want this. And so we want to make sure that parents aren't interpreting all these things to other people, that the children are actually able to say these words and get their needs met by those words. Also asks questions. And so one of those things that might drive some parents questions like, what's this? Why does that do that? Those kinds of things. We want the children to be doing that because they're becoming curious. They're knowing that what they say means something. And so we want to start seeing that at 3 years old. And then at 4 years old, they can follow 3-part commands. It's pick up your shoes, go get your backpack and put this away. And so they're able to follow those 3-step commands, whether they're doing it or not. That's neither here nor there. Sometimes they might take some time, but we want to make sure they're actually understanding those 3-part commands. And by 4 years old, they should be using complete sentences. And so if you're finding that there's maybe one word that you understand, but the rest is gibberish, we want to look at that and make sure that the children are getting the help they need for communication. And then at 5 years old, using 4 to 5 word sentences, uses comparison words like heavy, shorter, when you say, which one is bigger? This one's bigger, this one's smaller. So they're starting to know the difference between sizes and being able to say that. And like I said, if I'm going too fast or if you want more explanation, I'm happy to slow down. And then gross motor, we want to look at how children are using their large bodies. One of the great things at the preschool is, and you'll see when they're playing outside, they're riding their bikes, they're climbing the geodome, they're doing all these things that their body has to work. And sometimes some kids might need a little more help. And when they're playing, that's when we get to see that they're actually able to do those things or if they're struggling. And also it's where they're building all of these muscles. And so play is so important. They need to play to grow all of these areas of development. But here, if we're looking at 3 years old, they can kick a ball, and it's not necessarily we want them to, be soccer players or anything like that, but we want to make sure that they're able to isolate a foot and move it forward. And so we want to see if they're able to do that. If they can stand on one foot for about a second, it can be a little tricky. And like I said, there is a range. Some kids are really good and some kids might be a little bit behind, and that doesn't mean anything. It just might mean that they need a little more help. At 4 years old, they're able to climb a ladder and go down the slide. And so I know like at the preschool, there's the ladder that they can go up and slide down. So we want to make sure that they're able to do that on their own without an adult's help or anyone's help. They can catch a ball with 2 hands. And this is more of an eye-hand coordination, being able to know that something is coming and move their hands to grab that. And so we want to see that they're doing that. And then at 5 years old, they can walk on their tiptoes for 15 feet. This is more of a balance. We want to make sure that they have the balance. Sometimes kids tend to toe on their feet too much, and that can be kind of another side of maybe an issue we want to look at, but we would just want to make sure that they have that balance of being on their toes. And then skipping using alternate feet. And I know that's a tricky one, especially if they're not practicing it. It's not something they're really doing. It could be a tricky one, but it's more of that coordinating the body from moving one foot to the other, and for the brain to tell the body to do two different things at the same time. And then fine motor, we want to look at fine motor. And this is one area that we do find, especially at the pandemic, that children tend to be a little bit more behind on. It's not to say that they have problems with their hands, but they might not have been getting a lot of like that Play-Doh play and things that using their hands at the sandbox, squishing things. And so we want to make sure they're building that strength in their hands. Like I said, at the preschool, they're getting all of this when they are playing with the Play-Doh, when they're squishing the sand and it's wet, sponges, anything like that, it builds the muscles in the hands. And so that's going to help them later on to be able to control a pencil. And so at 3 years old, we want to see, can they open and close scissors with one hand? Maybe they're not able to cut with the one hand, but they know how to isolate the fingers to be able to move the scissors open and closed. Can they hold a crayon, pencil, any type of writing utensil with their fingers and their thumbs, so the tripod. So if they're able to hold, they have something, they're not holding it like this anymore. This is a developmental skill that they have, but they'll slowly start to learn to hold it like this. And so that's what we want to see. They'll hold it here, up here, start up here, and then it slowly comes down. And then those are skills that they develop as they're practicing, coloring, drawing, all those kinds of things. At 4 years old, can they unbutton more than one button? And can color mostly inside the line. So really, and I'm sure you guys are getting this at the preschool, you know, dittos are one of my, like, I hate dittos. It's more of that open-ended play, but we want to make sure that they have that control. So it's not necessarily that they're coloring and getting inside the lines, but that they have that control, that they're able to do that if they need to. And then at 5 years old, they can draw a person, the head, body, arms, and legs. It's not going to look perfect, but it's more of the idea. So it might be like an oblong head and some weird body, but at least they have that concept of this is a person, this is what they have. These are the items they have for their body. And can they cut with scissors on a straight line? And like I said, it doesn't mean like they have to cut these ditto papers, but if they're cutting, are they able to kind of go in a straight line, or are they kind of cutting all over the place? So we want to make sure that they have that control when they're doing those types of things. And we also want to look at problem solving. Like I said, kids are going to get this all through play, but we want to make sure that they're building these skills and having the opportunities to play to build these skills. At 3 years old, we want to see, are they copying the action after they're shown? And so this is more of that pretend play. You know, they see somebody cutting food, or they're seeing, you know, washing dishes or anything like that, that they're copying that, and they're able to see that somebody's doing that, and then they can bring it into their own world and do it as well. So they're figuring out that that's, you know, they can do that too. And can they answer, what is this questions? And so when you're looking at a book, you know, there's an animal or something, you know, who is this? What is this? They're able to answer those questions with the answers of whatever it is. At 4 years old, they know their there's differences in sizes. So big, little, they're starting to identify that, and can count objects up to 5 in order. So if there's 5 objects, they're able to point, so they can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And at 5 years old, counts up to 15 without making a mistake. So that's 1 through 15, where they're not jumping around with numbers. And then serves self with food using utensils. So able to scoop something out of a big bowl into a smaller one and able to serve themselves. And like I said, it's not more like, are they serving themselves? It's more, can they do that action? Maybe they're doing it through play. And this is where play is really important because they get to practice without, if they're doing it in the sandbox and they're scooping something inside of a larger container, they're getting that practice of the movement and the motion and starting to figure out, like, if I put too much, it's going to overflow. Or if I put too little, it's not enough. And so they start to do that problem solving through their play, where when they need it in real life, they're able to do it. And then personal social skills is more of a self-care. You want to make sure that they're able to take care of themselves. When they go to kindergarten, they're not going to have anyone there to help them to get dressed and do all those types of things. So we want to make sure they're getting that practice. And so at 3 years old, they're able to use a spoon while eating with little spillage. And so that's picking up. I can see a little one there. She's eating and she looks great while she's using her utensil. And so we're making sure they get the spoon, it's not falling all over the place, that they're able to at least keep most of it on the spoon and have the control to bring it up to their mouths. And can put on their coats by themselves. This is a tricky one. I think with parents, we tend to be in a hurry. So it's like, hurry up, get dressed, do this. And so we tend to do it for them. So remembering that, to give yourself some time so that they're able to be successful in doing it themselves. This is where dress up is a great practice for them. I always tell parents, if they're having a hard time dressing themselves, give them bigger clothes to play with. So when you're not in a hurry, you don't have to go anywhere. There's bigger shirts, maybe pants with the elastic, where they can practice putting it on and off. And that way they can build those skills for them to be able to dress themselves. And then 4 years old, same thing, without help, getting dressed, and then washing and drying their hands without help. So that's going into the bathroom, turning on the water, getting their own soap, washing, which I know they do at the preschool, being able to turn it off, grab the towel, dry their hand, and go out. So able to do all those steps by themselves. And then at 5 years old, they can dress themselves, but this includes buttons and zippers. So maybe they can't get all the buttons and maybe they're not all straight, but they know how to, they're able to do it themselves. And the zipper is still a little bit tricky sometimes to put it together, but they're able to get the zipper up and down. And then using the bathroom independently, this is the same thing, able to wipe themselves, dress themselves, flush, do everything that they need to do at this age. And like I said, it is a range. And so, some kids might need a little more help, but what we want to do is give them as much independence to learn these skills as they're getting older. And so those are the areas we're looking at for the children. We want to make sure that they're in within that age appropriate range. And if not, like I said, we want to make sure you're getting some things that you can do at home to help them with this. And we do help with referrals if needed for additional, maybe a referral to assess those areas. But what happens after you complete the screening? And so what happens is a service coordinator, I'm one of the service coordinators, will go over the screening results, answer any questions the family has, and we help connect to necessary referrals or community services. And this is where I feel like we get the most of our information. The screening is just a snapshot real quick of what the child looks like. But sometimes parents are like, I'm still concerned about this. And, I feel like there wasn't a question that actually hit this. So that's where we want to investigate that. We want to ask you, tell us more about that. And so we want to look at that. So even with the scores looking great, maybe there's other concerns that you weren't able to get in there. So we want to look at those too. Or maybe sometimes the scores don't look so good. After talking with you, it's like, oh no, I didn't understand that question. They do that. So it's not a definite, the screening isn't definite. We want to make sure we get as much information as we can to make sure that we're giving the families the appropriate information of what's going to help their child. And then what are the things that we're connecting families with? And so we do work, like I said, we work with pediatricians, all different pediatricians, preschools, school districts, family, child cares, everyone. And what we do is we connect with them, and we also have a screening for the parents because we want to make sure, especially like with the pandemic, there was a lot a lot going on. And so we want to make sure the mental health of the parents, they're getting services for that, or they're getting some kind of support. So we want to make sure that we're supporting the parents as well, because we know that's a key factor. The children might be doing great, but if the parents are struggling in some area, we want to make sure we're getting them help as well, so that they can be the best parent they can for their child. And so these are just some of the areas that we do connect families to. So developmental activities, even if the child is doing great, then we give you activities to do at home for the next level. So we want to make sure that you have ideas of what you can do at home. We do send referrals to Alta Regional Center when children are under 3 for further evaluation, or the local school districts. And so that's typically when a child is over 3 and over. If there's any kind of concern, we send a referral to the districts to do further evaluation and see if they can benefit from services. Mental health services, like I said, for children and families. It's one of those tricky ones that is such a huge need, and there isn't a whole lot out there. So we try our best to connect families as much as possible to what there is out there. Medical referrals, sometimes children can benefit from a referral for a feeding specialist. And so we help the parent, we talk to them about that. We send information to the pediatricians and let them know that this is a recommendation due to the concerns and what's going on with the child. And we encourage parents to talk to their pediatrician to work on those referrals to get the help that they need. We work with domestic violence support, connecting families to support in that area, caregiver support, behavioral referrals, crisis centers, resource centers, community events, and Ready for K, which Ready for K is a program. It's a texting program that we offer families, and it's you can sign up for it for free. And it'll send you information, either once a week text, twice a week text, and it just gives you some information for your child for that age, of ideas of what you can be looking for or things you can do at home. And so these are our play groups. They're free to the community. And like I said, I started right when the pandemic hit, so it was start a new job, and here we're going to be doing these Zoom groups, which was kind of crazy, but now they are in person. And so we do have our music groups twice a week. On Mondays is our English group, and Fridays is our bilingual group. And space is very limited just because it is indoors, and we want to we open it up to 6 families per class. And so every week you can try to register. If you can't get in, you can get on a waiting list. We try to keep track of who's on the waiting list so that we can give them an opportunity to come to at least one of the classes. The movement group, and all of these groups are run by a specialist. So we have the Music to Grow By, who do the music groups. Our movement group is one of our occupational therapists. And so it's dancing, music, doing different activities to get their bodies moving, and doing different types of movements that help them grow different areas of their bodies. And the sensory group, I actually run that one on Thursdays. And we do different activities. I try to keep an eye on what, and keeping in mind what the screenings come out. Like I said, fine motor is a big one, and personal social. So I try to incorporate that into our groups. And so we do a lot of fine motor, different activities so that kids are using their hands, exploring with textures, ripping, cutting. We do all kinds of different stuff with some music. It's kind of like a circle time. So getting kids to get some kind of different activities to get their bodies moving and experiencing different things with their hands. And then let's see here. And then as far as our screenings go, and I did send, I dropped off consent forms. And so if you are interested in being contacted, you can fill out the consent form. I did highlight where it says teacher, because we do like to share the results with the schools if they're with the teacher, so that they know how to help support the child in the classroom. But you can fill out that form, and what I can do is I can print screening packets and drop those off. We also we had a bunch of books donated to us, which was really nice. It's these 3 packs of books Those are there too. Those are for you. You can open them. You can have them with your, read them with your children. And, but you can also contact us. Here is our free number, the 844-410-GROW. But here's my actual personal for works cell phone number, and then my email, which is the Brenda DiGregorio, or brenda.DiGregorio@ctc helpskids.org. And so you can contact me. You can contact our 800 number. You also have a card that's attached to the consent form that has all of our information on there as well. And so, so you can contact us anytime, even if it's a question. I always tell families, you know, there's never, some families are like, oh, I'm embarrassed to ask this. You know, never be embarrassed. Always, you know, get your questions asked. Sometimes I know when you're at your doctor's office and the pediatrician, sometimes they miss things. And that's not that they're a bad pediatrician. It's just sometimes they're in a hurry. Sometimes they see things, one thing in the office, and there's other things going on at home. And so that's why we like to connect with the pediatricians. We do send, if the parents want us to send information, we send it with the pediatrician so that it's in the file. They know what's going on. And so we just want to make sure that all children in Yolo County are getting connected to any services that they need. Families are getting connected, and that we're giving them the best start that they can get for as early as possible. And so that's our goal.